Hi, how are you? Just my quick introduction, just so you know, how many of you know who I am already? A few of you? Okay, good. So I'm not a complete stranger. That's helpful. I invested my 20s as a serial entrepreneur. I've started and exited 5 of my own businesses. I haven't been an employee since I was 23, haven't had an employee since I was 43. I invested my 30s in strategy and restructuring. I worked with the Council of Europe. I've worked with World Bank on that, and I've invested my 40s as an executive coach in more than 150 different companies, including Microsoft, World Bank, United Nations, Emirates, Etihad, EAN here, ADNOC, some of the names you might recognize. Now I have earned the right to do whatever I want, so I have a trade license with 0 employees in it. I'm not even employed by my own company. I know. I'm drinking my own Kool-Aid on this one. Everybody that works with me. I have no employment contracts at all. I have a number of full-time staff, but can you call them staff if they don't work for you? They work with you, right? So my job every day is to try to keep them interested and to try to keep making sure that I'm improving their quality of life in a way that's meaningful to them so that they want to work with me, not for me, when I am not in the room, which is pretty much all of the time. Today, I'm so sorry you decided to show up. This is not the right morning to be here. We're going to talk about something very, very unprofessional, but first I need to tell you a story. I was raised in a really loving home, and I know this is not a normal story. I know it's kind of a rare experience, but I was raised in a loving home. My parents were very religious, and we were always told that we were loved. My parents were like, I love you, I love you. And my dad every morning wakes up and he's like, oh, I love you, son, and give me a big hug. And I'm like, Dad, I'm 50 years old now. This is embarrassing. You really need to stop. And he's like, no, but I'm just so proud of you and I love you. But that was the home I was raised in. Me and my siblings, we were told that we were supposed to love each other even if we hated each other. And we loved our neighbors and we loved our dog and we went to church every Sunday and our pastor told us we needed to love our neighbors ourselves and we needed to love one another. And so that was kind of the world that I was raised in. And then I grew up and found out that it was all a really big lie. Because you know what happens when you become an adult, right? You get a job. And then you got to spend half of your life every day with a bunch of people that you are not supposed to love, right? And if by some horrible happenstance you do in fact love those people that you're working with, you should never ever tell them because that is deeply unprofessional. So my entire entrepreneurial and consulting life was spent in the closet as a closeted lover, loving people that I was working with, connecting with them deeply, and never telling them so because that would be highly unprofessional. Till one day, about, I don't know, maybe 7 years ago, I was here in Dubai. I was doing strategy and restructuring and coaching for a fashion company, about $600 million US fashion company that's based here. And the CEO and I were on the phone. It was a big week. We were doing some restructuring. The changes we were going to make were going to have some significant impact on some really good, talented people. So I had walked out of the office. I was down at my car. I called him. We were talking. He was in the office. I was at the car, and we just chatted for about 45 minutes about the changes we were going to make and the impact it was going to have on some really amazing people. And it was a kind of an emotional conversation because we care about these people, right? And at the end of the conversation, I said, okay, great work. See you Monday. I love you. And then I kind of freaked out. So I didn't think about it, right? I didn't think about it. I like this guy. We were connected. He was a nice guy. And I was like, okay, love you. And I'm reaching down and I'm immediately panicking in my head. Did I just tell the CEO of a $600 million company that I love him? Yes, I did. Yes, I did. I'm doing a fact check. I'm sanity checking myself on that. And I'm reaching as fast as I can for the little red button on my phone to close the call off. And then I heard it through the speaker, right? The little speaker, and I could hear it. It was faint, but I heard it. Good work, Corrie. See you Monday. Love you too. Boom. We never spoke of it again, right? I still see this guy. We had coffee like 3 days ago when he was here. He's based in Sweden now. But he came over. We had coffee at the Els Club. And yeah, we still didn't speak about it. Like we acknowledge, we make eye contact. We're like, you know what you did. And he's like, yeah, but that would be so unprofessional. So I got to thinking a little while ago about why that's unprofessional and whether or not that's right. I'm a leadership expert, so I do a lot of leadership training. I do a lot of corporate facilitation. I do a lot of strategy retreats for GCXOs or executive committees, boards of directors that want to build strategy for their company. I do a lot of that. And yeah, I read a lot of books on management and leadership. I read, 24 books a year on empathy and respect and shared value and belonging and discretionary effort and all of those things, empathy that you hear associated with good leadership these days, right? And all of these books, I'm reading 24 of these books every year. None of them is talking about the highest form of any of those things. The highest form of empathy is love. The highest form of respect is also love. The highest form of trust is love. So I was sitting with Stephen Covey, who was a guru, who's become a good friend over the last few years. And we were having lunch here in Dubai, it was like 3 years ago, and I said, listen, you're my guru on trust. Where is your book on the highest form of trust? He said, what do you mean? I said, you've written nothing about love. Love is a default to trust. Just like that. He's like, right. So I said, you should write it. So I did. But not before I spoke with Amy Edmondson, who's my guru on psychological safety. Some of you have read some of Amy Edmondson's research. She's brilliant. I met her in London at Thinkers 50 in November of 2023 in the middle of the research for the book that I brought for you. And I asked her, I said, look, you're my guru on psychological safety. You've done more work on this subject than anybody, and I absolutely respect your work, but I'm looking for your paper on the highest form of psychological safety, which is love. Why do we not write about that? She said, I don't know, maybe you should. So I did. But that became kind of a common theme, and all of my books are the product of my irritation with the world. It bothered me that nobody had written about this. So I decided to do the work. And for me, love is not a spiritual concept. It is not a religious concept like the one that I was raised with. Love is an evolutionary psychological best practice for survival that bonds humans to each other. Love is what earned you the right to be born. The last 10,000 iterations of your ancestors survived this planet by knowing who to trust, who was going to provide for them and protect them when they were not looking, and who they were going to share their scarce resources with. We call that love. And that is what we have kicked out of our organizations, because we think it's expedient to treat humans like resources. And the better we can dehumanize the people that are working with us, the more productive they will be. Isn't that right? Yep. I started to question that prevailing thesis. So I did my homework. Turns out the idea of humans being resources, actually it started with the robber barons and the Industrial Revolution, but it was really given name by Peter Drucker after the Hawthorne experiments in 1936. Peter was the first one that said human resources, though he was far more on the human side than the resources side, and he would be appalled at what we did with that term in our organizations. In the 1980s, companies like EY and KPMG came on the scene with a brand new business model. They figured out that if they could go into a company and not cut human beings out of their economic tribes, that's mean. We don't do that, okay? What we're gonna do is we're just gonna cut the labor line by 30%. We're just gonna decrease the budget on labor by 30% and then just see what happens, right? And if they do that, then the net profit skyrockets at the end of that year. People are doing more with less, and there are less people doing it, so it's easier to manage them. Make sense? At the end of that year, skyrocket profit and net profit, which means that the collaborative CEO makes a massive bonus. The shareholders get huge dividends, and the consultants get paid incredible commissions on their savings. It's a great business model. The unfortunate byproduct of that is that all of these people needed to exit their economic tribes. And we don't have a lot of evolutionary psychology that backs that psychology up, right? So for the last 10,000 iterations of your ancestors, if any of your ancestors was removed from the tribe, that was a death sentence. I'm sorry, we're not going to share the meat with you anymore. We will not provide for you or protect you, you or your young. You are no longer a member of the tribe, please leave. That is fatal. And we have built psychological tools that are 1 million years old to help us to understand that that is a very near fatal experience. In fact, 2 studies from Sweden and the US agree that your hazard of death goes up by 16% in the 2 years subsequent to an involuntary job loss, as long as it doesn't have any connection to your performance. And those are corrected studies. Those are corrected for things like pre-existing mental conditions, alcohol abuse, substance abuse. The fact is that for 1 out of 167 humans on the planet, involuntary job loss is fatal. That's the horrible science of it. So I started thinking, like, maybe this whole human resources, or worse, sorry, human capital. Anybody got a human capital department? It's ridiculous. We don't behave like capital. I studied finance at Harvard. I know psychology really well. Humans are not capital. We are not. I can predict capital flows. Human? No, not at all. We are emotional. We are weird. We're, look, wonderful, creative, loving, caring people, but also kind of mean and awful to each other sometimes, right? And if you're married like I am, it might be to the same person on the same day. Okay? Yeah, humans are not capital. We are not predictable. We are not resources. We're just amazing adaptive mechanisms. And all of us, every single one of the people that works with you, not for you, don't confuse those things. Nobody works for you, okay? Everybody in your organization is an apex predator. Every single one of them is the product of 10,000 iterations of a successfully improving survival and adaptation machine. And I guarantee you, no matter what you think about their employment status, none of them work for you. They're all working with you for as long as working with you helps them to reach their personal goals, which have nothing to do with you or your company or its products or its services. Starting to make sense now? Good. So what if we've kicked out the most powerful tool that we have? Right? The consequences are really clear. Probably the most dramatic ones you know of, the stories of Foxconn. 14 suicides out the window of a warehouse. Those nets are still there right now. There's a series of cruise ship suicides because of maltreatment of employees. The French guy named Remy Levredoux is an amazing example. So Remy was working for France Telecom for 30 years, and he was in charge of employee mental health at his branch. And the CEO wanted to cut the labor line by 20%. So he wasn't allowed to fire people because of laws in France, so he just made them miserable. He made them miserable until they quit. The problem was, like, for somebody like Remy, he'd been there for 30 years. What's he supposed to do, right? Like, where's he supposed to go? That's his whole career. Not just his career, but he'd spent more than 100,000 hours of his life in that organization. That's not other than him. The idea of work-life balance was invented in the 80s so that we could convince you that your work was other than your life, which is stupid. Your work is at least half of your life. And for the last 10,000 successful iterations of your ancestors, your work is who you are to the tribe, which is why when I meet you for the first time, I ask you first your name because I need to know what to call you. And then the second question is, what do you do? Now you'll notice. Whenever somebody meets you for the first time, what's your name? What do you do? Why do we ask that? Why am I asking what do you do instead of who are you? What are your values? How many kids you got? What do you do on the weekends? What's your favorite movie? Did you eat anything good lately? Where did you travel? No, second thing I need to know about you is what do you do? Because for the last million years of evolution, what you do is who you are to me. That is the value that you add to my society in exchange for a share of the resources. And I need to know what you do so that I know how to talk to you. If you're a doctor, architect, plumber, writer, teacher, I have vocabulary for you. I know how to treat you. I know the value that you add to the society that I participate in. Make sense? So Remy was adding value to this company, France Telecom, in exchange for a share of the resources for 30 years. And they put him in a windowless prison cell type office in the basement with no computer, no phone, and they just ignored him. So he'd write letters about employee mental health to the CEO. Dear CEO, this is what's going on. All of the letters went ignored, and he felt stuck. He was demoralized, denigrated. April 26th, 2011, he kissed his wife goodbye, sent his kids to school, and he drove himself to work and lit himself on fire in the parking lot of the office, killing himself just days before his daughter Naime's 18th birthday. He's not an exceptional case. There were 60 employee suicides at France Telecom in a span of about 5 years. That's one employee every month for 5 straight years in just one company. And that's not an exceptional case against Foxconn and Carnival Cruise Lines, and there's a lot of these cases around. And the fact is that what you do for work is how you participate in the tribe. And we are not psychologically evolved enough to think of our work as something other than our life. You know, work-life balance is a myth, right? Yeah, it's something that we wish were true, but it isn't true. It's kind of like unicorns and fairies and elves. Yeah, work-life balance. Yeah, none of your ancestors earned you the right to be here by work-life balance. So the fact is that everybody that works with you, not for you, is putting at least half of their life every day into an economic project that you're in. And they're counting on you to lead them. And they're counting on you to help them to feed their family, educate their kids, put gas in the car, food on the plate, take a vacation once a year. And their best performance is going to be based on their ability to trust you to help them do that. Their ability to respect you for how you help them to do that. And their connection with you and their sense of belonging that they feel with you when you are not there, which is where your margin is, by the way. The margin of your company is made in the dark when your employees are not being managed, which is like 98% of the time. 98% of the time, your apex predators have access to your network, your products, your services, your clients. And what do you think an apex predator does when they are not being managed? Whatever the hell they want. They are the product of 10,000 successful iterations of a survival and adaptation machine. You with me so far? Right. So on the psychological side, employees with low job control, so employees who think that they don't have much say in what they do or how they do it, are 21% more likely to die in general, 50% more likely to die of heart disease specifically than those that do. That's the human cost of low job control. On the financial side, there was a study of 400 different companies, 400 companies with an average of 100,000 employees each, large companies, found that each of those companies pay an average of $62 million a year on misunderstandings alone. That's the financial cost of humans not feeling understood, right? And if we want to get to love, we have to start somewhere, right? So in order for a human to feel loved, which is the highest form of discretional effort and belonging and safety and respect and value and pouring themselves in, right? That's the highest form. But in order for them to get there, they first have to be valued. And in order for a human to feel valued, they first have to be understood. And in order for a human to feel understood, they first have to be heard. And in order for them to feel heard, they first need to be included. And there's a lot of talk about inclusion and diversity and equity these days, but inclusion, from my perspective, is the baseline. It is level 1 in psychological safety, and that's where we need to start if we're going to climb that ladder up to love. And love is not it's not a nice to have. It's not a badge you wear on your sleeve or a t-shirt you print with your logo on it. Hey, we've got love at work. Right? And I would really hate it if it became a tick box exercise on a management performance review, like on a scale of 1 to 10, how loving is your manager? I think that would be really horrible. I think that kind of erodes this into something performative and mechanical, and that's not my idea. That's not what I want to do. What I want to do is to get back to what makes us the most human in the place where we spend the most time with other humans. And I think that's about the most natural thing I can think of. But we got this problem. We're allergic to the word. I cannot say I love you without you saying, well, what do you mean by that? All right? Oh, what if you mean something nefarious? What if it's romantic? Huh? Hey, I love you. Oh, you're making eye contact now. This is super awkward. Okay, we don't know what we mean, but it's probably the most horrible word in the English language. It's incredibly imprecise and incredibly meaningful all at the same time. Make sense to you? Why do you think we don't use it?
Well, harassment, why not?
Yeah. Look, I understand what you're saying. Sexual harassment is a big issue. Yes, and it deserves serious consequences. You shouldn't have to say out loud that love has absolutely nothing at all to do with sexual harassment. These are dichotomous things. You cannot have this and this at the same time. But we don't think that way. If it's sexual harassment, it cannot possibly be love. Does it make sense? So why is the association there? Why is that there? What else?
It can be seen as a sign of weakness from a leader.
100%. 100%.
Yeah, vulnerability.
Yeah, the vulnerability of saying that. It's like, oh, well, then there's loyalty and commitment. I want loyalty and commitment from you as an employee, but I'm not willing to give that. What if I have to fire you one day? I don't want that level of commitment. So yes, I'll accept commitment and I'll accept loyalty from you, but this is a one-way street. Yeah, it's hard, right? We want more than we're willing to give. That's true. I was doing an executive offsite for a major multinational bank. I won't tell you the bank because it's kind of embarrassing. There were 17 GCXOs and CXOs in the room. I was going through this as a workshop for them. They wanted to learn more empathetic leadership as a core team of executives. And I was about, 45 minutes in. I introduced some of the science and everything. And the GCEO says, Dr. Corrie, what if we're uncomfortable with this? And I said, what do you mean? I said, everybody's uncomfortable with this. He goes, well, what if we don't want to do it? I said, what do you mean you don't want to do it? He says, the whole empathy and connecting and love and belonging and stuff like that. And what if we don't want to do it? I said, well, the science is really clear, right? If you do it, your people will live happier, healthier, longer lives. They'll perform better. They'll be more productive, and your bank will make more money. So if you don't want to do it, then it's because you value something more than people and more than money, and your shareholders might want to know what that is. The GCFO was like, hilarious. It was really funny. And he was like, okay, like he got it. Okay, the science is clear. The way that I was raised in management theory in the 1980s and 1990s is not the most efficient way to manage a human being. It is the most efficient way to manage a human resource. And there's a difference between those two things. So why else? I think the biggest fear is the connection with sex. We can say the word sex out loud. We're mature enough for that. I used to be a sex educator. So in Estonia, my first entrepreneurial company was an education company. And I ended up with 100 teachers that would do third-party education in high schools, anger, communications, substance abuse education, the stuff that the school itself wouldn't do. And one of those subjects was sex. So in Estonia, for 8 years on the street, I was known as the sex guy. He would be like, kids who'd been in like auditoriums where I'd speak, they'd be seeing me on the street, oh, you're the sex guy. And I'm like, that's me. And my wife would be like, oh, so embarrassed. But it's the association of love and sex. Certainly you can have love without sex, right? I love my mother. Okay, good. We're on the same page. And you can have sex without love, right? Okay, so those two things are not intrinsically connected. We don't have to have them on the same spectrum. In fact, at the very high end of the spectrum, I love my children. Okay, that is a meaningful, eternal kind of self-sacrificing, I will do anything love. Not even remotely sexual or romantic. And on the low end of the spectrum, I love chocolate. I really love chocolate. And Matt Damon. I love Matt Damon. I mean, we've never met, but every one of his movies is amazing. And I think we would be friends if we met. So I love chocolate and I love Matt Damon. And on the committed side, I love my children. Neither ends of this child chocolate spectrum are even remotely connected with anything sexual or romantic. So why isn't it that we can find something like in the middle, something here that we can use at work to connect with each other in that way that earns the deepest level of default to trust, default to empathy, default to the highest level of productivity, highest level of performance, default to the highest level of discretionary effort. I was told one time in a workshop I did on love at work that it was a sign of weakness. No, the word he used was unmanly. It's unmanly to talk about love at work. I was like, okay, let me stop you there. What's the highest level of discretionary effort that exists in any organization in the world? It's a really good trivia question. Military service. The level of discretionary effort that is asked of you in the military is that you would be willing to die for your country and for the person next to you. Now, is it possible to elicit that kind of discretionary effort without love? No. No, it is not. So I did an interview with Frank Genio. He's a former U.S. battalion commander, resides here in Dubai. And I asked him about it. I was like, look, what's the connection between discretionary effort in the military and love? And he goes, not just connection, it is a requirement. They have to love, if they're going to be on the field under fire with each other and one of them is going to throw themselves on a grenade to save the other 5, that has to come with love, not just for the person, or not just for the people around them, but the people around them love that person to the point where they take care of that person's family after death until they die. And he told me story after story about how people threw themselves in the line of service. They gave their all for these people around them, which they will never know because they are now gone. And these teammates from his battalion, from their squad, they come home and they take care of that person's kids and their family. That love extends beyond death. That, my friends, is the highest level of discretionary effort. You will not find that in an HR policy handbook. You will probably not find love in an HR policy handbook. This is not something that we should be putting in our HR policy handbooks or our employee manuals, and we should definitely not be outsourcing this topic to the legal department. We are 1,000,000-year-old love machines. Every one of your ancestors earned you the right to be born by knowing who loved them and knowing who didn't. And knowing who they loved and knowing who they didn't. It is a switch that switches on in your head when you are willing to share your resources and give your best for someone other than you. And I'll bet you, all of you, can name somebody that you have worked with before that you would say that you love that person. Am I right? Even if you didn't say it out loud, right? You would say it in your head, oh yeah, I really love that person. You never tell them because that's so unprofessional, but yes, you love them. They had that level of trust and respect and discretionary effort and performance from you. Am I right? Okay, so I'm not asking for us to talk about anything weird or abnormal. I'm just asking for us to acknowledge what's already there, maybe amplify it and see what happens to our profit margin.
Corrie, going back to your thing in the military, what are the requirements that, that as a superman, a leader, and the rest of it, you are required to know your men?
Required to know?
To know your men.
Yes.
Not that,
Yes.
not what they qualify for,
Yeah.
the whole background.
That's right.
Because if you know their background, then when they're feeling low, you can help.
That's right.
In business,
Yeah.
that's often fraught with danger because of privacy walls, gaps, knows what else. So how does an organization get around?
Relationship always trumps contract. All contracts are written to govern the breakdown of relationship. The best contract you ever write or sign is the one you never refer to again. Okay? Same with policy handbooks, same with employee manuals. It is there to govern a breakdown of relationship. If your heart is in the right place and your person you're talking to, their heart is in the right place, the policy manual won't matter. The employee handbook doesn't matter and the contract doesn't matter. The relationship trumps that. And that is true of every culture, everywhere in the world. So if you get to know your people, look, you don't have to do it, right? Obviously, but you'll make more money if you do. So be greedy. Get to know your people. If they feel like you care about them, even if you don't care about them, if they feel like you care about them, guess what they're going to be doing during the 98% of the time when they're not being managed? They're going to do whatever you want. They're going to do what's expedient for you. They're going to be as helpful as they can for you. Because you love them. Even if you've never said it out loud. They know. Because you know when you're loved and you know when you're not loved. Yeah.
So sometimes nobody does this out of hate. Sometimes you're in a situation where you have to make a difficult decision. So in order to save the 80% of your employees who you love.
Yeah.
Right? You have to sacrifice the rest of the 20%
Yeah.
because it's the demand of the situation,
Correct.
right? So even if we want those 20% as well, but just for the sake of the whole well-being of the organization, you have to take tough decisions. So how to navigate about them then? Should we ignore the whole business side of it?
It's a very good question. It's a very painful discussion, actually, because of the number 167 that I told you about earlier. This is a real number. Look, the tribe is more important than any member of the tribe, including the chief. That is true. You always save the tribe. Also, what is true is no king in history has ever sent their army home. If they cannot afford to feed the army, they sack another town. They do not fire the army. They look to the market. Make sense? I'll give you an example. Here in Dubai, during COVID, the most devastated industry in the world during COVID was the airline industry. At my last count, 15 major airlines went bankrupt during COVID, and they never recovered. One of the ones that we have here is Fly Dubai. The CEO's name is Raith Al Raith, and Raith is a family man. He's a tribal chief kind of leader, and so one of the policies that he took, that he told his executive team was, we are not letting anyone go. We will make sure that they get basic pay, that they get their housing, that they get education. We will cut as much as we can without cutting them from the tribe. We will ask them to go on rations. We're going to go on rations. That's what we're doing, but we will not kick any member of our family out of the family. If I would not remove my child, I will not remove my tribe member. Most difficult industry in the world, remind you, right? So his executive committee immediately bucked back and said, this is impossible. It cannot be done. And he said, this is what we're doing. Find a way to make it happen. They pivoted to doing air cargo flights where they loaded the entire passenger seating area with PPE from China, and they would fly it anywhere. They would put their planes from anywhere to anywhere to serve cargo and increased demands for high-speed cargo. And he gave all of his employees that wanted one an NOC so that they could work outside. He helped to fund education so that they could prepare themselves to resign because he wouldn't fire them. And he kept his army standing, which was the most important strategic decision that he ever made as a leader. Because a year later, when the airline industry started to pick up again, when companies like Emirates, for example, had cut more than 30,000 of their key staff, their frontline staff, their customer-facing staff, they were not ready to ramp up. It takes weeks, sometimes months. It takes months to train a pilot. It takes at least 6 to 8 weeks to train a crew member, and it takes at least 2 to 4 weeks to hire that crew member. If you want to ramp up and you have demand, you cannot serve that demand if you've let 30% of your army go. Jaith had a standing army. All he had to do was say, come to work. They all had their licenses, they had their recurrencies, they kept their education going so that when the demand was there, they could respond to the market. This is very, very significant difference in leadership decisions. These decisions are very clearly mapped in industries where two different companies with different leaders made different decisions. And in airline, for me, Emirates and Fly Dubai is a pinnacle example. In automotive, it was Al Masood Group. Al Masood is UAE trade license number 1. When they wanted strategy and restructuring and leadership training and coaching, they didn't go to KPMG or McKinsey, they came to me. I helped them more than 7 years ago build a brand new leadership culture in the organization. That leadership culture is what they now credit for their survival and market expansion during COVID. When all of their competitors were receding, they were grabbing market share. In automotive, who's buying cars when nobody's driving them? But they had a hot leadership culture that was leaning in, that had decided, as Faith had decided at Fly Dubai, that we will not send the army home. We will keep the army standing, and we will do whatever it takes to survive. They went on rations, and they survived and grabbed market share, and as a result, they ramped up when everybody else was cutting back. It's difficult to make that kind of a decision. But if you look at the history of human psychology and how we evolved together, we are a very social species. And you can imagine what happened to the culture of loyalty and discretionary effort at Emirates as opposed to Fly Dubai. Or at Al Masood, for example. Their people will never leave them. They know this is the best economic tribe they could possibly be a part of. Yes, it's hard. If I look, I'm a restructuring expert. I'm a leadership expert of organizational dynamics. I've been doing strategy forever. If you have to make the painful decision of cutting 20% of your tribe, then it has to be the 127th hour when you do it. Do you know what I mean by that?
Try it.
Sorry?
Try everything.
You've tried everything. Yes, you are literally signing bankruptcy papers on one side or redundancy papers on the other. The 127th hour is when that hiker cut off his own arm to save the rest of his body. It is that painful. And you have to keep in mind that every 167th person that you let go will die as a direct result of that decision. And there is nothing that you can do about that. That it should be that difficult of a decision to make, because that is the actual statistical human cost. And I'm sorry, I can't change that for you. We are humans, not resources. We are not capital. And our ancestors earned us the right to be born by adding value to the tribe in exchange for a share of the resources. In many of our cultures, that was so much a part of our identity that has become our family's last name. My family's last name is Block because my ancestors were Masons. That is who I am. Yeah. John.
So everything you're saying resonates with me, except I'm just thinking as you're talking, right? We're about to enter the artificial intelligence revolution.
Yes.
That is going to allow companies to transfer a lot of the work that's been done by humans
Correct.
to artificial intelligence. If my competitors are making all these changes and I suddenly don't become economically viable anymore.
Correct. Yes.
So I love my employees, but I may not be able to keep them just to survive.
Correct.
So how do you?
I know.
How is that?
I know. Look, AI is not going to replace many jobs, but those who use it will replace those that don't in every job, including CEOs. CEOs who augment with AI will replace CEOs who do not. That's happening now. Okay. So yes, you need to augment with AI. Some of your people can be upskilled, but my recommendation is if you do need to eliminate the job, you de-hire them. So I did this as an experiment for the first time about a decade ago. Dubai Municipality wanted to get rid of one of their departments. They had a number of people in that department, and of course, my policy on this is we never cut any person from their economic tribe, okay? We will find them another community. So I convinced the general director to de-hire them. We took the recruiting department and the HR team, we took 3 of their people, and we turned the engine in reverse. And we said, now, for as long as it takes, it is your responsibility all day, every day, to make sure that these people find themselves gainful employment in another economic community. So they worked on their CVs. And as a recruiter, you can work on a CV really well. As a recruiter, you can find people jobs just as well as you can find people for jobs. So we just took the engine, turned it in reverse, and we de-hired all of these people. Within 60 days, all of them moved from one community to another community, all of them, without exception. It was a little bit more expensive for the organization, a lot less expensive for the people. And guess what happened to the reputation of the organization for the remaining employees that were still there? Their discretionary effort went up. Their loyalty, their performance, their engagement went up as a result of seeing this. They saw what happened. We can de-hire people.
I mean, I think there is good examples of companies that have had to make these tough decisions, rationalize their workforce. Yeah. They've helped them find the jobs.
100%. Yes, you can upskill them into something that you need, or you can de-hire them into another community. Remember, they're humans, right? Not resources. And removing a human from the economic community where the majority of their household income comes from is psychologically really, really hard. Really hard. I talked a little bit about suicide, about death, but there's a large psychological toll that's even greater than those numbers in terms of depression and new forms of substance abuse and Yeah, and there's even secondary studies of the spouses of people who have lost their primary source of income and the psychological toll that it takes on them too. And there's a significant uptick in depression and mental illness as a result of that. The reason is because we are 1 million years old. Technology evolves exponentially. We evolve very slowly. We are iteratively evolving. One iteration after the next, and it's about 40 years between iterations, right? Technology is evolving like this. Seconds between iterations now. We don't have the tools for this psychologically. But if we pay attention to the psychology that we've brought with us, we become much more powerful. And dehiring your people will improve your bottom line by increasing the discretionary effort of the people that remain. You'll get your money back, don't worry. Also, if you just fire those people, the remaining people in your workforce will become 30% less productive because they will trust you less. They will add less of their discretionary effort and time. They will take more sick days when they don't need to. And they will be spending a good deal of time brushing up their CVs just in case they're next. Yes?
So, about hire fast, buy faster. So sometimes you end up hiring the wrong person who's a wrong fit in terms of maybe skills, in terms of values even. So I'm supposed to be.
Yes, fire fast. The tribe is more important than any member of the tribe, including the chief. So, but hire slow. This is where we get it wrong. If anybody read Work Rules by Laszlo Bock? No? Okay. Laszlo Bock was, for 10 years, the GCHRO for Google. And his work rules are really good. Hire slow. Take as much time as you need to find out that you've got the right person. And then just empower the hell out of them and stay out of the way. And I like that. I like that as a job description. I think your job description as a CEO is to hire slow, fire fast, clarify vision, stay the hell out of the way. That's it. Yeah.
I manage a recruitment company.
Yeah.
So I deal with people every day. And I think, probably with a fair amount of certainty, if I said to the candidates that I deal with every day, I'm lucky.
Yeah.
And if I said to the clients that I deal with every day, I look, my business was shut down.
Okay.
I went. And I would gain terrible reputation on Spartan, which is not a good place to have a bad reputation.
Yeah.
However, I have no problem in saying to a client, I love working with you.
Sure.
I love what you do.
Yeah.
So my question to you is, do we actually love the person or do we love what they do? Mm-hmm. Because if, for example, I'm not been working with this client and he stopped doing what he's doing, I don't stay loving him.
Right.
I just don't like what he does anymore. So it's kind of not person that you have this relationship with, it's what they do.
Do you have kids?
4.
4. Do you love them when you hate what they do?
Our mantra, Bob, is there's no such thing as a naughty child. It's what they do is naughty.
Good. So can we put that into practice at work?
You do. I love what you do, but I don't love you.
Okay. That's fair. They haven't earned that yet. That's okay. I work with lots of people that I don't love, but I tell them I love them because I get more loyalty as a result. I get treated better as a result. I'll tell you what, I started to do an experiment a little while ago. I started to sign all of my emails, love Corrie. No more sincerely, no more warm wishes, no more best regards. And to everybody, by the way, suppliers, clients, strangers, inquiries on the website, members of the royal family, ministers of government, everybody. I just decided arbitrarily, even the service manager at my bank, whom I'm very angry with, I'm writing emails, right? Rah, 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 rah. Love Corrie. Okay, that's it. I've just arbitrarily, everybody gets love Corrie. If you've ever written me an email, that's how I'm going to respond. I just wanted to see what would happen if I just arbitrarily threw a little bit of love into the lowest quality communication I ever send out, which is an email. I've been doing this for more than 2 years. Nobody seems to mind. This has gone out to hundreds of different companies, royal family members, ministers of government in at least 6 different governments. Okay? Nobody cares. As a matter of fact, I've only received positive comments. People writing back like, wow, that's really cool. I'm going to do that too. And I feel very confident, by the way. The experiment is a success. You should try it. Right? I know. You're having a heart attack right now. I know. I'm sorry. But yeah, what do you think is going to happen? Right? If you just write, like, love John. Love Simon. Okay? But more importantly, what do you think might happen if 1,000 of us started to do it, or 10,000, or 1 million? What do you think might happen in general if 10 million people started signing all of their emails love instead of sincerely? What might happen to the social subtext around the word, around the way we treat each other, around business? What might happen to that default to trust that we're hoping for in that relationship, or that default to discretionary effort that we're hoping for? What might happen? Can we erode some of the human resources language with something a little less formal, something a little less sincerely? It's possible.
Is there a danger we become desensitized?
Yeah, I do worry about that. And more than that, I worry about commoditizing love. I'm worried that somebody's going to come up with a training program, you know, or like
loving what you do.
Yeah. Well, Marcus Buckingham did a great job of that. Love plus work. Loving what you do is different than loving the people that you work with, right? You can love who you're with. And actually, if you love who you're with, you don't care what you do. Humans will collect garbage and be very, very happy if they love the person they're collecting it with and they know why they're doing it. It's the why and the who that matter. The what doesn't matter at all. You think Cristiano Ronaldo is waking up today excited to kick a ball around on grass? No. What doesn't matter. Who and why matter.
Just add a point.
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
The other one that I think is that we do business with people who we like working with.
Sure.
So I don't really think it's one take blue, because today, for instance, let's say my target client is, let's say, a legal counselor.
Yeah.
If tomorrow he weren't to be a legal counselor,
Yeah.
I would still maintain that relationship because, I like that person.
Yeah.
So otherwise, if I were to not like him, it would be a transactional relationship, right?
Yeah.
So I think even if you want to be in that position, there would still be a great relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. And we call that affinity. You can like somebody that you have affinity for, and you can hang on. Where you can like somebody that you have affinity for, and that liking or that love can actually extend beyond this economic relationship, right? And look, let's make no mistake, okay? All business is personal. It's never just business. Every transaction impacts on one set of families and takes resources from one economic tribe and moves it in the direction of another economic tribe. That's personal. Okay? So yes, all business is personal. All business moves resources from one tribe to another, from one person's family to another person's family. There's no way to escape that. It's going to impact on that economic tribe's ability to feed their families, to maintain their contracts, to educate those kids, put gas in the car, food on the plate, that kind of thing. So yes, it's all personal. But I have 5 kids, and I love all of them, even when I really don't like them. Sorry, John, you had a question or a statement?
Well, it's more like, that a saying that, you don't resign for your company, you resign for your manager.
That is correct, yes.
And also, my daughter was really unhappy at school recently.
Oh.
Myself and my wife, when we engaged with the school, I just got a really bad feeling about the culture of the school and the teachers, and I felt, you guys are just going through the motions.
Yeah.
So we decided to change school. And actually, really what I wanted to find a school where the teachers loved their job.
Yeah. And the people.
I wasn't expressing it this way, but you made me think now. And the teachers loved their pupils.
Yeah.
I felt like the school that our daughter was in, which is a very reputable school in Dubai.
Yeah.
But the teachers were not giving me any reference that they loved their job. In fact, it looked like they hated their job.
Yeah, and you want your kids to spend their childhood in that environment. When they're not at home with you, being loved by their parents, you want them to be loved by their teachers.
But the culture of the new school versus the culture of the old school, it's got
of course.
It's got love in it. I didn't feel like we were that
How
culture of the old.
Unbelievably cruel of you, John. It's a bait and switch. When they grow up, they're going to be adults. They're going to have to get a job, and then they're not supposed to love those people. You shouldn't teach them that. I'm kidding.
No, I understand.
No, absolutely. You should teach them that the world is a loving place.
To me, this was a sixth sense
Yeah.
that I just woke up one day and I went, this school's not good, right? It was because now that I'm rationalizing it,
Yeah.
it was actually the teachers that were not working with love.
Yes. And it's not a sixth sense. It's a million years of wisdom. It's a best practice. Your ancestors earned you the right to be born by knowing who was actually taking care of their children when they were out doing agriculture or hunting. Who's taking care of those kids? Do the people taking care of the kids, do they have those kids' best interest in mind? Do they have my best interest in mind? Yeah. We've got psychological tools for that. It helped all of our ancestors to survive.
But the funny thing is, I actually really realized that the teachers loved working for the headmaster as well.
Ah, good.
The headmaster was really the secret source of this new school.
All culture starts at the top. You're the top. Start the culture. Yes.
So, see, I get it. I think a lot of people do. So, love, see how it works, not only with human interaction, but financially well.
Yep.
So you should be aware. How do you feel is the best way to get to? You can't just go around the office saying, "I love you, I love you." I mean,
Why not?
so have you got some tools of church?
Yes, 100%. Yes. I've got tools and tricks. Yes, I'm going to give you tools and tricks. Then I saw somebody's hand up here. You, and then you. Okay, just hang on. Tools and tricks first. Okay. You feel the most loved when you feel heard and understood. That's the fastest way. Okay? When they feel heard and understood, they start to go up. It's okay for them to not be agreed with as long as they're understood. Even your kids will feel the same. They don't need you to agree with them half as much as they need you to understand them. And the only way that they will feel understood is if you can repeat back to them what you've heard in a language that they hear as an echo. When they hear your words back and it sounds like something that they meant, then they feel understood. Even if you don't agree with them, even if you say, look, we're deciding to go in this direction, but I hear you, I understand you, this is what your concerns are, this is what I think is important to you, I've got you. That understanding goes a long way. It takes a minute to do that. And we sometimes think we don't have that minute, but what happens when an employee leaves your office and they feel misunderstood or unheard? That is what you don't want. They don't need to be agreed with, but they do need to be understood. That's a rapid shift. And then the other one is just active listening. And I know you've heard there's 6 steps, 7 steps, whatever. For me, Peter Drucker was right. The first ingredient in good listening is a closed mouth. Your mouth, by the way. Yeah, it's hard because I like talking. I love it. But yeah, the first ingredient in active listening is a closed mouth. After that, care and curiosity. If you're curious about what that person is saying and what it means to them and you care about them, listening will take care of itself. You don't need any more than that. The rest is a million years of evolutionary psychology. They'll pick up on it. Make sense? Those 2 things will help. Yes.
No, I just was thinking, it's a hard sell, not because it's not right. It's a hard sell because you haven't been taught that. If you get your MBA, you get your PhD, whatever else, it's very a certain way in my view. Same as you mentioned KBMG. They come in, they go, cut 20%.
Yeah.
And that's how we've been educated into running things. So bringing it in is a difficult concept because you've been that trained. I mean, don't get me wrong, I feel the education is very outdated. It has to be updated, but how, you're going to, not just us, people around you, people that work with you.
Yeah.
How do we get them to also get that? Because obviously we have a C-suite or we have people around us that we trust that you have a connection with, and obviously you get to that where you show that love with this. But you don't necessarily see 5 rungs down from that on a daily basis.
That's correct.
How do you transcend that into rest?
First of all, you have to model. You have to set the example from the top. Okay, that's number 1. Secondly, it is in your best interest, and you should be greedy here. I want you to be selfish. I want you to be greedy. I want you to make as much money as is possible. 14.7%. Would anybody enjoy a 14.7% increase on their bottom line? Anybody? I would enjoy that. That'd be great. So Gallup did a study of 1.4 million employees across 147 industries, 50,000 business units. And they found that the number one, well, actually some of the benefits of employee engagement are like really strong. There's 41% higher 41% lower absenteeism, 59% less turnover. So your tenure, an average tenure of almost a year goes up if your employees feel engaged in their work. There's like 17% less safety incidents, 17% higher performance, 21% more profit on the bottom line for those companies whose employees say that they're better engaged in their work. What's most important about that study is what they didn't print in that list is that 70% of the variance on whether an employee feels engaged or not has nothing to do with their tasks. It has to do with the relationship they have with their direct line manager. And I'll put it in very scientific terms for you, when an employee makes eye contact with their direct line manager, if they are producing oxytocin instead of cortisol, your profit margin goes up by 14.7%. That is the scientific truth. Don't follow me, follow the science, okay? That's what I'm doing. So you should be greedy about this. You should know that if you invest in connection, if you invest in that, then yeah, you're going to make more money. Companies who improve the number of people in their company who say they have a best friend at work. Have you heard of this? I've got a work bestie or work spouse. If you improve the number of people in your company that say they have a bestie at work by 20%, your profit margin will go up by 12%. That's because they feel more loyal. Even if they're not loyal to you, they're loyal to the person next to them. They say it's the same principle in the military. You don't have to be loyal to the president. You got to be loyal to the person next to you. That's where your discretionary effort comes from. Make sense? So yeah, be greedy, be selfish about this, and then help your line managers to understand, help your executives that are reporting to you to understand how much you care about them, how human they are to you, that they matter. You know that they're showing up to work every day for reasons that have nothing to do with you or the products or services of the company. They're not excited to kick a football around on grass. They want to win. And they want to win on a team that they're excited to play for and for a captain that they really love and respect. That's what they want. The ball, the grass, doesn't matter. It's just a game. You were next. I see a lot of hands. I'm conscious of the time. How are we doing? Okay.
I look forward to read your book.
But I would like to add a couple of tools answering colleagues. Definitely the employees want to be respected and heard and involved. But I'm using a tool for the past years and helps a lot. La Five Language Club.
Yes.
Full stop.
Yeah.
This, if you read about the 5 language of love, apply them, because you cannot say I love you to everyone.
That's right.
But definitely.
In chapter 8 of this book, you will find a translation of the 5 love languages into management terms.
Yeah.
Okay? You will be able to apply them. They're practical. I have a copy of this for everybody in the room. You're going to trade your contact information to Gotham for a copy of the book after this. And hopefully, if Simon likes me and they invite me back, then next time we'll talk about executive coaching and the profit margin improvements on that. Sorry, who had their hand up? Yes, go ahead.
Well, is there a danger of familiarity?
What do you mean?
And so, if you start sort of spreading love, does that create that, in an effort to break that barrier to the other side, does that then breed familiarity, which can then lead to you? Corrie, how about pay rise?
How about
pay rise?
A pay raise?
Because you got this more of a cap.
Yeah.
And every company else has a Korean bar.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, of course.
But depending on the size of the company, the structure of the company, it's not always possible if you can't be strong pay rise around really do that.
That's true.
So how table that potential for familiarity?
Yeah.
I feel there's more open to come and say, okay, whatever.
It's going to be really counterintuitive for you to hear this, but the studies done in 2017 by BetterUp found that employees who feel more connected in their work, they are willing to work for 23% less. But we pay them more. So they're willing. The fact is that the more familiar they get, the less likely they are to ask you for a raise, because meaning is the new money. And people who find their jobs meaningful and who find the people that they're working with, people that they care about, they're happier with less. So it will take them 23% less time to ask for a raise. Make sense? Yeah. Also, I follow the science on this.
I'm back in experience. So.
Yeah, you'll end up paying them more because they're more productive and they're higher performing.
Also in favor You think somebody needs a pay or
Yeah.
offer the PIC before they ask for it.
Yeah.
It's like you deserve it.
Yep. So what will lead to, what precipitates that level of performance and discretionary effort where you offer them a raise before they ask for it? Higher performance, higher productivity, more discretionary effort. And what precedes that? Why and who? That. Not what. Why and who?
Some people have a higher opinion of themselves that probably is justified.
That's fair. In my experience, there's a lot of that kind of presentation. I'm a tier 1 executive coach, so yeah, I know. I've noticed it. I'm a tier 1 executive coach, so I know a lot of, let's say, strong alpha male leaders of companies of 50,000 or more who would be considered narcissistic by their outward behavior. The fact is that they have to portray a certain kind of presence in order to elicit the sort of confidence in their leadership that they need to get a large number of things done in a very short period of time. Most of them aren't narcissists at all, at least not in a psychological sense. They have imposter syndrome, and they're presenting as confident when they themselves are not. But you can't go into an executive committee meeting saying, hey, I'm a little insecure about our strategy today, because that undermines the confidence in your leadership that you need to get shit done, right? So authenticity and vulnerability at the top level in an organization is a double-edged sword. The authenticity that you need to express as a CEO, you cannot express to your executive committee because it shows as weakness, and you need them to be confident in you. You cannot express that to the board of directors because that shows as weakness, and you need them to be confident in you. And you cannot express that at home because your spouse doesn't want to hear it. Don't drag your shit into the dinner table, okay? Leave your work at work. So who are you supposed to talk to about that? And the fact is that the higher people get in their organizations, the more they feel that kind of isolating influence that they have to present as perfect, even though we know they're not. And that's a horrible, horrible double-edged sword. Authenticity hurts at that level. And if you're in a large organization like EAND or Emirates, that sort of authenticity can impact on the brand. It can drag the stock price down. Then you've got 150,000 investors paying for that cost. It can be really, really bad. So empathy, first of all, for those people who are presenting themselves as perfect and who have those walls up. They've probably been taught that their survival is based on it, but the more you can connect with them and learn about them personally, the more those walls will start to come down. And if you can create a safe space for them to be authentic and be vulnerable with you, their loyalty goes up when you're not there, and that's what you really want. That's where your margin is. Yeah.
Yeah, so I have 3 quick questions. So first of all, startup has really tried it, creating family and tribe culture. And I think that got a lot of criticism in the last 2-3 years when they have reversed like work from home policies, going back to office, like Amazon and Google or whatever. So maybe your thoughts about that, and that has that been an attempt to show love at workplace? Number 2 is feedback culture. So what about tough love? How important is that in this? And
Very good question.
the feedback culture.
Yeah.
And third is, I've been part of Karim, and I saw a big trend from we had this, with your perspective, we could sell people the dream, the mission, whatever, attract people at the less compensation scale because the mission was so strong in the beginning. But later on, we to give people that poison kind of the culture, the family culture. And the question is really, if you have someone with more a corporate upbringing mindset, how do you bring that to this empathetic leadership?
It's a good question.
This is the bait.
Okay. And then you're last. I saw your hand, so I'm not kidding you out. You're going to be last. Okay. The first question was again?
Your perspective on family kind of thing on the startup culture that around the on whatever, right?
Yeah. So again, the majority of humans, we were in small tribes. So we've evolved to be in small tribes, which is why Dunbar's number is important. We can't handle more than 150 to 250 acquaintances in our heads. So usually around 120 people in a small startup. As soon as you hit that number, about 100, 120, you have to create an external text. We call it vision, mission, values, strategy statement, purpose statement, objectives, whatever it is, your BHAG. You have to have an external text. In history, we call those epic poems, sacred texts, constitutions, mythology, whatever it is. It has to be external because humans can't self-organize in groups of larger than 120 to 150. That's number one. So that's how you translate culture into larger groups, is you have an external text and you make it sacred. Okay, we call them vision, mission, values. The second question was about Tough love. Yes, the word honor and the word honesty are the same word. If you are not being honest in your feedback, you are dishonoring the person that you're talking to. And you're assuming that they are either not interested in their self-development or not capable of it. Either way, you're arrogant. Does that help? Third question?
It was about if you have leaders in your organization
That are poisoning, yes.
that is coming from more corporate
Yeah.
mindset. Is it a lost cause, or can you actually be?
Hire slow, fire fast.
If you have let's say we want to take your book and say,
Yeah.
I want you to know this is my organization and have more love in our organization.
Yeah, sit down.
Team there, willing to take this on directly, but
Yeah.
some people are maybe more of the old style to describe
Yep.
the CEOs. So how do you? Is it a lost cause, or is it possible?
No, I have found that very old dogs can learn very new tricks. But they also need to be treated like humans, not resources. And the challenge is that when we're bringing people that have had that much tenure in corporate life and they've been learning to protect themselves emotionally for that long, it's very difficult for them to trust that your interest in them is genuine. Once they're convinced that your interest in them is genuine, yes, they break down. They break every single time, in my experience, every single time. And then they start to breathe fresh air for the first time in their career. They don't feel afraid when they walk into the office, because they feel like there's somebody here that trusts them and respects them and understands them and values them and loves them for who they are, not for what they can do for you. They are no longer a resource, they are now a human. And it doesn't matter how long they've been resources, as soon as you start to treat them like humans, they will start behaving like humans. It's pretty cool, actually. But it does take a little bit of time and patience. If they have amazing talent, put in the work. Last question.
The third part there kind of gives an answer to my question. But fascinating topic. Thank you for writing the book. I think it addresses and balances some of the toxic corporate culture out there. Like you, I was raised in a loving family, but I started working in an American company that's brutal and heartless and dirty unit. I agree. And as I grow as a leader, I appreciating the value of love, and I look forward to read the book to enhance that.
Thank you.
And a lot of unlearning of what I learned in the American corporate culture.
Yeah.
But that's on the corporate level. But on a personal level, isn't that you can't give something that you don't have if you didn't come from a family like yours or mine? Because we need these people who are very dry inside. Is that what do you do in these cases? Can you help them? Can they be helped?
Yes. Yeah. People who are hurt people, right? Loving people tend to love people. People who come in hurt need to be loved. And if they see that, and yes, it takes a little bit more time, but if they see that, then they understand really quickly what the benefits of that are, not just on their own neurological processes, but on the discretionary effort that they're willing to give and the discretionary effort that they can elicit from people that they express that same sort of love and trust and compassion for. Right. Last thought. I hope that thank you so much for the generosity of your time. I appreciate that. I know I'm over. And I hope that I get the chance to do this again someday. We'll talk about something different, but equally important. And just in case nobody's told you in a while, I love you. Okay?
Love you back.
Thank you.